Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Greg Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM.
There's no doubt about it. There's no better feeling than being able to make someone's dream come true. Project 143 gives orphans the opportunity to leave their orphanage and visit an American host family. That could be your family. Each child's story and picture and more about hosting over Christmas or for a few weeks during the summer is available online at p143.org. There are 143 million orphans worldwide who need you. Consider hosting an orphan for a few weeks this year with Project 143. Find out more at p143.org.
From Chesapeake, Virginia, the Lighthouse 100.1 presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic. Now here is Greg Bicouvaris.
Sports Scene, midweek online, Saturday on the radio from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on 100.1 FM, 1010 a.m., tunein.com. Type in WPMH in the search bar to listen on the radio. Greg Bicouvaris, Joe Daniel on the Lighthouse. Sports Scene is an interview show each week and also sports highlights on nnpstv.com. Tell your friends about gjbtv.com and click the YouTube link on the homepage for archived audio and video. Twitter @GregBic, and you can see the rest of my Twitter handles on gjbtv.com in the contact section. Thank you to our military for what you do 24/7. Guest lineup presented by Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. They'll be delivering soon. Sponsors on gjbtv.com, Hampton Roads Online Mall.com, and hrsmhof.com. Phone line presented by Me Casita with 2 locations in Virginia Beach. Show is presented by hrsmhof.com. Wimbledon's going on. Major League Baseball on Fox. Great Saturday night games. Enjoy the summer. Great interviews, business segments, highlights, commentary. What tees me off? Thank you for making the habit to listen to Sports Scene weekly, and we love our regulars, newcomers, and tourists. Stay tuned.
Dr. Hartman is the most caring and gentle dentist I've ever been to. She takes her time with you and listens to every word you say. All of her staff are very professional, kind, and caring. I highly recommend this practice to anyone who's in search of a new gentle dentist.
5-star review rated Hartman Dentistry. Make an appointment today. Mention this ad and receive a 50% discount on a personal comprehensive dental exam. Call 757-873-3407. That's 873-3407.
Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene @GregBic on Twitter. Our good friends at Sakura Japanese Restaurant. Go by and see Jasmine and the friendly staff. They deliver through orderup.com. Phone number is 410-4577 for great Japanese food in Chesapeake. We've had this gentleman on before on Sports Scene. Always a privilege to talk to Joe McIlvaine, the former Mets and Padres general manager. Welcome back. How are you, Joe?
Okay, good. I'm in Nashville today watching the Iowa Cubs play the Nashville Sound.
Well, give us an up-to-date what you're doing today as far as scouting and the lay of the land.
Well, the team that I work for, the Orioles, right now is probably in a sell position. So a number of us are out looking at minor league affiliates of the major league teams, as well as the major league teams, of course, and just trying to discern what is available and what would be available, and would we have interest in certain players.
Very nice. How has it been going from a general manager to a scout? I know it's probably not as demanding, probably a little bit more fun, but regardless, you still have to be proactive and have an eye for talent.
Well, yeah, that's the name of the game. The difference is what I do now is almost 100% baseball. When you are a general manager, you don't get as much baseball because there are so many other issues that come up non-baseball related, and personnel issues and things like that, money issues. But the good part about this job, if you're really a true baseball person, is this is pretty much all baseball.
Mm-hmm. You know, the All-Star Game's coming up in Washington, D.C., and Fox, of course, televises it. What a big ordeal the All-Star Game has become, Joe. It's a big made-for-TV event. It's almost like a reunion for baseball, and it really is just everybody hands on deck.
Well, that's right, and it's been that way for quite some time. I'll tell you a story real quick about that. 1992 in San Diego, we were hosting the All-Star Game, and I was a GM at the time, and I had a box upstairs overlooking down above home plate, and I was sitting up there getting ready for the home run hitting contest, and sitting with me was my farm director, who was Ed Lynch at the time, just the two of us. And all of a sudden, through the door comes the PR director, says, "Joe, we got a problem." I said, "What's the matter?" He says, "We screwed up the seats for this guy, and I don't know what to do. Where can we put him?" I said, "Well, who is it?" He says, "Joe DiMaggio." So I looked at Ed, and Ed looked at me and said, "Well, bring him in here."
Yeah.
So sure enough, 30 seconds later, here comes Joe through the door, comes down the steps with his two bodyguards, which he always had with him, and sits between Ed and I for about the next 2 hours while we watched the home run hitting contest. And it turned out to be one of the great nights of your life, and it was totally unplanned.
Did you have it catered at least?
I think we got him something.
Very good, very good.
I remember asking him, "What size bat he used?" And when he was playing, and he says he used a 36-36, which is a tree. And he says, at the end of my career, I started getting a little late against the fastball, so I dropped down. I said, "Well, what'd you drop down to?" He says, 36-35. If you told that to hitters today that use 29s and 30s and 31s, they wouldn't believe it.
Talking to Joe McIlvaine, former Mets, Padres general manager, Sports Scene right here on 100.1 FM, 1010 AM, tunein.com. Type in WPMH. Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us. How many dealings did you have with that iconic DiMaggio? Was that the only one, or you had several?
Yep, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I really, I saw him places, but I never really had the opportunity to talk with him again. But it was just one of those things that happen in your life that was just unplanned, that just you never forget.
Yeah, it was almost like that type of thing with my dad and meeting Woody Hayes at his house just by coincidence, the former Ohio State coach. Really, you don't get that many moments like that, but you seize the opportunity when you do. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Orioles, maybe not on the field, but how difficult is that for the general manager's perspective and the manager who's been around for several teams, Buck Showalter and Duquette, to know already before the All-Star break your season is pretty much a long spring training? How difficult is it from that standpoint?
Well, it's difficult, of course, emotionally, and the fact that you know that you're not going to win this year. But at the same time, it sets your gear in motion to make the team better and to go out and, Buck has to try and win some games, obviously, at the major league level, but he also has to look at young players and players that are on the team and try and decide who are the keepers and who aren't. Whereas Dan is kind of surveying the whole surface of all the teams and trying to figure out ways that we can make ourselves better. You have to decide whether you're going to wholesale sell people or you're just going to retool a little bit, and that's kind of decisions that are very, very important as far as going forward. You don't want to put yourself into a building position where you're building for the next 3 or 4 years. You'd like to take a quicker route if possible.
Talking to Joe McIlvaine, Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us. And it really is difficult for the Orioles. They're not lacking of talent, but it's been the pitching and been a lot of bad luck, injuries, and the talk of Machado going away as well.
Yeah, but I think players are able to put that aside for the moment. They realize that what their job is, and they need to go out each night and do their job. They can't control the headlines, they can't control what people are saying, but it's just something you have to live with as a Major League Baseball player. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's more intense than others.
When you were a general manager, of course, with the Mets, you saw Dusty Baker as a player with the Dodgers. And I'm a big Dusty fan, and still a lot of people around here don't understand why they got rid of Dusty. I mean, he did make the postseason. Yes, he did not advance, but the Nationals have not played so far this year prior to the All-Star break. And it just has people scratching their heads. Why do general managers sometimes have to pull the trigger so fast on, after a year or two, firing a manager? Is it personality conflicts with the general manager? Because it sure wasn't wins and losses. They didn't evolve in the postseason. What else could it have been?
Well, I don't know that, obviously, but, you work for an owner, too, and owners have feelings, too, and sometimes, and I don't know that is the case here, but, you have to work with your owner as well, because they may have different things they want to do as well. So when you have to make a decision like that, it's never easy. It's always difficult. But at the same time, there must be reasons that they thought maybe they wanted a younger guy, or I don't know, maybe they wanted, you just don't know, because I'm not in that organization to be able to tell you.
When you're watching baseball today, Joe, do you see the fundamentals? What is the big thing that people have to work on? Back in the day, you'd have several pitchers going 8 or 9 innings. Now you're lucky if you get 6 or 7 out of the starting pitchers.
Well, same thing in the minors, too. You're getting so many of your pitchers coming to the big leagues now who have never pitched a complete game. Mm-hmm. And, that's just, I guess, what's going on, at least right now. I don't know if it's the pendulum theory or it's going to swing back to the way it was, but for right now, teams have bought into the idea of more men in their bullpen and less men on their bench, and their starters not going 9 innings. And, for older baseball people and for guys that have been in the big leagues and are now retired and they watch the game, it's a very disconcerting view of the game. And a lot of them are, I wouldn't say angry, but just confused by what's going on and the wheres and the whys of why is it that a pitcher can't go 9 innings anymore. It wasn't that long ago. They certainly did.
Talking to Joe McIlvaine, one more question before the break. When you're scouting and you see talent, how soon do you try to work with that talent? How soon do you try to get them up to single A or double A? Or how does that protocol work when you spot some fresh talent?
You mean in your own system?
Yes.
Or other people? In
your own system, yeah.
Well, what you're trying to do is build confidence in your young players so that as they reach each level and their confidence grows, they're ready to move to the next level. And that's very important. And it's also very important to have a period in the minor leagues where you fail, where you just lose sight of what it is you're trying to do, and you just have a bad time of it. Because the guys that sail through the minor leagues, sometime or other, it's going to happen to you. It's inevitable. You're going to have a period where you just lose your way. And you hate for the first time of that to be in the big leagues. I remember Dwight Gooden, when we had him in New York, he sailed right through the minor leagues and got to the big leagues in his first 2 years. He was Cy Young Award winner one year and Rookie of the Year the other year. And then for the first time in his life, I guess, he had a period where he began to struggle a little bit. And that's a difficult time to do it. You'd rather have them do it in the minor leagues so that before a player comes to the big leagues, you like to be able to have had him struggle at some point and lose his way a little bit so that when it happens again in the big leagues, he can handle it better.
All right, we're going to come back with a short break with Joe McIlvaine, talk about some of his highlights from the Mets and the Padres and a little bit more about what he's doing today as Sports Scene continues after these messages.
Are you a Christian business owner or an aspiring Christian entrepreneur? Do you want to transform the marketplace in your community? Then it's time for you to discover B2B groups, small group Bible studies that meet regularly to study what the Word of God says about business and to encourage one another with God's powerful wisdom for our lives and businesses. To learn more about joining or starting a group, visit blessedtobless.net. That's blessed, the numeral 2, bless.net.
The best guests appear here on Sports Scene. Now back to Greg in the Hampton Roads Online Mall.com studios.
All All right, welcome back to Sports Scene. I want to thank our good friends at Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. Go by and see Mike and the staff. Spacious, nice dining area. Excellent bar, lunch and dinner daily. They'll be delivering soon. Burgers, steaks, soups, salads, seafood, pasta, chicken ribs. Great place to get some dessert, steaks, burgers like we mentioned. Go by and see Mike and the great staff at 1255 Fordham Drive in Virginia Beach. Open daily. Phone number 523-4832. Like them on Facebook, and for more, go to Outback.com for the Kempsville location. Talking to Joe McIlvaine, former Mets and Padres general manager. Baseball has been part of your life ever since you grew up in Pennsylvania. I guess it just will continue to be as long as you're on this earth.
Well, I have 4 children, and the advice a father gives his children is always something that they come back and they tell you. But the one thing I told them was, I said, look, the secret of life is to find something you really like to do and then find somebody to pay you to do. And I guess I've been able to accomplish that myself in my own life, because you never have bad days. You have tough days, but you never have bad days, because every day you wake up, you look forward to what's going to ensue that day.
Mm-hmm. Talking to Joe McIlvaine. Joe, talk about some of your highlights with the Mets. It must have not always been easy being in the tri-state area with all those big personalities, all the other professional sports teams, a lot of distractions, not as many player distractions back then because there was no internet back then, no social media to get them in trouble, but they could always find a way to get in trouble with nightlife or whatever. How was it dealing back, in those decades that you worked as the Mets general manager?
Well, the thing you always have to remember is the age of the players, too. Most of them are in their 20s, some of them are in their 30s, one might have 1 or 2 in their 40s. But you try and get a blend on a ball club of young players that are coming up, stabilizing guys that like the 3 to 6 year guys that are in there, and then you need veteran players on your team. And I think that's very important to have that blend, because sometimes your older players are your sheriffs. I remember Keith Hernandez one time going right up to Darryl Strawberry, right in his face, basically, and saying, "Let's go. You got to hustle more. We got a chance to win this thing. Let's go." And Darryl, from that point on, took off and played the best ball he played the whole year. And managers have to be like that, too. They have to know their players. They know who needs to be kicked in the butt, and they need to know who needs to be patted on the rear end, and just to try to maximize the performance they're getting out of each player. And that's really the secret to managing. It's not the X's and the O's and the great bunt in a situation. It's really motivating your players and getting them ready every day to be at peak performance.
Yeah, but you had players like Foster and Kingman, who are big-time personalities, especially Kingman, very reclusive kind of player. But then you also had, like you mentioned, Doc Gooden and Darryl Strawberry, too.
Well, that's right. And that's what the job of the manager is, is that as a general manager, as a farm director, as a scouting director, what we try and do is select the talent. The manager's job is to utilize the talent and get the most out of it. And that's really the difference. So we can only be suppliers. The manager has to utilize it. And managers are very creative. I learned that one year when we had a pitcher named Sid Fernandez, who was a notorious fly ball strikeout guy. There were very few ground balls hit against Sid. And we had a shortstop named Rafael Santana, who was a nice fielder and a light hitter. And on the days when Sid Fernandez would pitch, Davey Johnson ingeniously would put Kevin Mitchell at shortstop. Mm-hmm. He didn't belong at shortstop. He was a third baseman and an outfielder. But that way he got his bat into the lineup. And, I wouldn't have thought of that as a supplier of the talent. But that's what the managers do. They come and they utilize that talent to its fullest. And managers, sometimes you judge them by that, how creative they are and how do they maximize the talent you give them.
I remember I was in college trying to talk to Sid Fernandez. They had an exhibition game at RFK Stadium in D.C. He was not the most talkative person in the world.
No, Sid was not. That's true. But, they're all different.
Yeah.
And right now, one of the challenges, too, is to try and understand the Latin American players, too, because about 30% of our big leaguers now come from countries other than the United States, and it's probably growing as well. So the game is changing in that respect. I think back when I was running teams, it was about 20%, but we're up to almost 30% now. And it's incumbent upon the manager and the people that run the team to understand, because everybody from a different country is different. The Dominicans are different from the Venezuelans, from the Cubans, from the Asians, and it's really a tough fit sometimes for a manager to understand where everybody's coming from.
Right. I mean, look at the players back, especially, I'll just go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, even this century, that played baseball for so long. I mean, Yastrzemski played for several decades up until the early 80s with the Red Sox. Or you talk about Joe Rudy, who was on the 72 and the 82 Oakland A's team, or Reggie Jackson, who played for the Angels and the Yankees, or Chris Chambliss. It seemed like those players, they were lifers. They played for a long time. Tommy John, the list goes on and on.
Well, remember, too, back in the 50s, 60s, and so they had about 16 major league teams, too. And then there's been expansion to get to the point where we're at 30 right now. And I think that the current commissioner wants to go to 32 here soon. And, of course, there's teams lining up with their franchise requests when they hear that kind of thing. The AAA teams and the AA teams are really eager to strut their stuff and let people know that they think that they're a big league candidate.
Mm-hmm. Talking with Joe McIlvaine, how was that as far as being the general manager?
Well, we were in a situation out there where you're in the Western Division, and it was good competition. And San Diego, had won a little bit in the 80s, gotten into some postseason. But when I went out there, they were right on the fringes. And we made a big trade right off the bat when we traded Alomar and Carter for McGriff and Fernandez. But then we acquired Gary Sheffield after that. We had a pretty good team. But we were just a little bit short on the pitching end, I think, is probably what happened there. But, it's hard to go out and acquire good pitching. People aren't too eager to give them up.
Did you have a lot of dealings with Steve Garvey?
No, I did not. He was gone by the time I was there.
Right. And, of course, then you were with the Twins for a while, too. Talk about Kirby Puckett. He was beloved when he first got there, but he had his issues toward the end of his life. It's a shame he's no longer with us.
Yeah, he died certainly at a very young age, but, he was kind of like Torrey Hunter in a lot of ways. It just personality radiated off of him, and I think the players really gravitated quite a bit toward him. He was the unquestioned leader there when they had their success, and it's tough for teammates to see a guy like that demise so quickly, and that's what happened. But it's God's plan. We're all here on borrowed time.
Exactly right. Baseball, healthy today. You don't hear as many people talking about juicing or issues with the balls. I mean, sometimes the home run is king. Sometimes it's just base hits. But it seems like baseball is pretty healthy right now.
Well, it's going through a transition phase right now of the way the game is played. You mentioned earlier about the innings pitched for pitchers. And also the other side is the hitters have become very much pull-oriented and home run-oriented. And the thing that's missing from the game now, from a lot of teams, is the ability to manufacture runs, where you'd get a man on first and a guy would hit a ground ball to the opposite side of the field and move him over to second or to third and then score on a sacrifice fly. That's manufacturing a run. Today, what you're seeing offensively with a lot of ball clubs is if you don't hit a home run, you don't score. Mm-hmm. And I don't like that particularly. And you don't see the bunt anymore, too. The statistic people don't think the bunt has any value, so you don't see many teams using it anymore. So, I mean, we're in the midst of a big change as far as how the game is played.
When you give updates to the ball clubs that you work with, you do it by email, by phone, by social media. What's your method of operation for communication?
Ours is mostly texts, and sometimes we have conference calls. And you can pick up the phone at any time and just call the person that you need to talk to.
Very good. Joe, all the best to you, and have a great rest of the summer, and we'll talk to you as it gets near the postseason time.
Well, I'm glad to talk to you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Safe travels. Joe McIlvaine right there, folks, a former Mets and Padres general manager on Sports Scene. Enjoy your Saturday and stay tuned.
Virginia Beach, make it the summer to remember. Get ready for the Summer Lights Tour with Jeremy Camp.
You call me out.
Matthew West.
I'm going all in.
And Ren Collective.
He's on
with special guest Corinne Hawthorne. July 19th, 7 p.m. at Rock Church in Virginia Beach. Tickets are on sale now online at summerlightstour.com. That's summerlightstour.com. The Summer Lights Tour, presented by Compassion International.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Email bicogb@hotmail.com. Now back to Greg Bicouvaris in the Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com studios.
I want to thank our good friends at Panera. All items 100% clean. They deliver soups, sandwiches, salads, bagels, bread, smoothies, breakfast sandwiches, lunch, dinner. They have it all 7 days a week. For more, go to PaneraBread.com. Food as it should be. Give them a call at 483-3670. Visit them at 6255 College Drive in the Harborview section of Suffolk. So you tourists on 664, go by Panera Bread today. Our weekly segment with Ian Locke from the Norfolk Tides Media Relations Director. How are you, Ian?
I'm great, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Very good, very good. Tell us about what's going on this weekend, a little bit of a road trip.
Yeah, we Tides are playing well. We're finishing up our last series before the road trip for the International League All-Star Game. We AAA has from Monday through Wednesday this week, 9th through 11th, there is an All-Star break. And the AAA All-Star Game is on July 11th at 7 p.m., and we actually have 3 representatives this year, infielder Drew Dosh, outfielder DJ Stewart, and right-handed pitcher Jimmy Yacobonis, all playing for the International League in that game. So it should be a good time, and let the rest of our guys get a little bit of a break, and then we start back up with a homestand at Harbor Park on Thursday, July 12th.
Very good. It's always fun to have a homestand. I guess it's great that you can process when the team is on the road to get more prepared for the final big, strong months of July and August.
Yeah, it's the breaks are nice. We had a really long homestand just now that finished up the longest homestand of the year, where we had 10 home games in 9 days, and the team went on the road for a little bit, and it's one of those things where we get right back to work, catch our breath for a day or two, and then plan on the next homestand. So. We're meeting again, I think, early next week just to kind of go over the final particulars of this homestand, and we'll knock that one out, and that's kind of what we do. We'll go through the homestand, and then when the team goes on the road again, we'll schedule everything for the upcoming homestand and keep on trucking. I think we got about 25, 30 home games left this year, so the summer's moving fast.
Yeah, tell the fans about staff meetings, how they go about with the team, because I know you're really not involved too much in operations, but kind of like everybody is all hands on deck. It's not just like you're doing media, but you really know all facets of the ball club. Talk about what staff meetings are like. Take us behind the scenes.
Yeah, so we have there's a phrase that a lot of people in minor league baseball say where you got to wear many hats. There's not many people that do just one thing around the ballpark. For example, I work doing media stuff, but also I do all the social media, all the publications at the ballpark, just a whole bunch of stuff, all the stats, all the game notes that we do for team game, and then the website as well. So there's a lot of things that I do, but there's a lot of things that other folks do as well. Our sales staff, a lot of people will sell during the day, and then there might be the on-field MCs at night, or selling groups, or selling suites or picnics or patios, what have you. So our whole staff is we got a veteran staff, but a lot of people do many different things on staff. No one really has like a one thing they have to do. So, but for those staff meetings, it's just kind of finalizing what's going on. The first pitch, the national anthem. What corporate suites have boxes that night. Who's going to be, and what are the giveaways? How many do we give away? Who gets the giveaway? If it's kids, if it's, for Father's Day, if it's men only, if it's women only, if it's children only, and, how are we going to give those away? Because there's a lot of, logistics that happen too, where we got to make sure all the gates are covered. A certain percentage of giveaway items need to be at each gate to make sure that, when fans come in, the last thing we want is, the third base gate or the first base gate to run out of whatever item we're giving away, and meanwhile there's 1,000 of them left at home plate. We got to divvy this stuff up fairly that way. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to prepare for every one of those home games, and hopefully when the fans show up, it's a seamless thing. They walk in, get their giveaway item, and they're happy, and they enjoy a ball game. Speaking
of the fans, talk about your ownership now, and since it started with Ken Young and how it's evolved over the years. He's been involved with a lot of different teams all over the country.
Yeah, Ken purchased the Tides back in, I think his first year owning the Tides was 1993, which was the same year that the Tides moved into Harbor Park in downtown Norfolk. And Ken made a lot of his money and got throughout minor league baseball in concessions, and he runs concessions, which is Spectra Services at the ballpark. So he handles the concessions not only at Harbor Park, but through a lot of ballparks across the country. And he also owns the Bowie Bay Sox, which is a double-A team for the Baltimore Orioles, and the Class A Frederick Keys, also an Orioles affiliate. And then he owns the Biloxi Shuckers, which is a double-A Milwaukee Brewers affiliate, and then the Albuquerque Isotopes, which is AAA, I believe, for the Colorado Rockies, if I'm not mistaken. So Ken is spread out all across the country. He's a busy guy, but he definitely comes in. I think Norfolk was the first team he owned, so we're kind of his baby a little bit. So he comes in and visits with us a bunch of times. He was actually in town over the 3rd of July week to check in, and he was there 4 or 5 days and did some nice things on the field where we recognize some of our longtime staff members who had been there for 10, 15, and 20 years. So Ken presented them with some items in the field to kind of show his appreciation for some of the guys that work really hard behind the scenes.
They sure do. Talking to Ian Locke with the Norfolk Tides, and baseball is a lot of fun, and the fans are involved in it. And I think that's the thing when they come to Harbor Park. It's not just a baseball game. It truly is a fun family event. There's something for everyone. Like you always talk about, the nice view of the water. You're always evolving with the concessions, and you have a nice restaurant. We haven't really talked about your restaurant a lot, but it really can host a lot of different events.
Yeah, that's like I mentioned before with you, Greg. I mean, it's not just a game, not just baseball. It's every half inning there is, a game is played, but there's 3 outs, and then we try to entertain. We do everything we can, whether it's kids race, kids run the bases after every single home game. We shoot fireworks, we do giveaways. We have all sorts of Military Monday or Wind Down Wednesdays and Thirsty Thursdays kind of things at the ballpark where there's something every night going on. And the restaurant's a great example of that. We have a really nice big restaurant that seats about 250 people down the right field line, completely enclosed where you can get the AC on the the hot summer days, but in the wintertime you can go in there and get some heat. But they have a full bar, a full buffet, which is really, really tasty, and all the games are on TV, so you can watch the Tides game on one of the TVs in there. But they also have the TV tuned in to something else going on, and you can listen to the game. But you can turn around. There's these really big, giant glass windows where you can check out the game and watch the game as you eat. And there's also the as you're familiar with the pulled pork, the Salute to Pork Challenge, which I know you gave a shot to a couple years ago. And for those that don't know, it's kind of like a man versus food challenge we have in the restaurant where there's I think it's 5 pounds of different pork products to try and consume within the hour. There's different pork ribs and all sorts of pork sliders and sausages, and then there's 1.5 pounds of chili cheese covered tater tots. So that's more than a mouthful. I know you gave it a shot a couple years ago to try and finish, but it's always a fun thing we do down in that restaurant, and it's just another thing to add to the list of stuff we do at the park to keep fans entertained.
Absolutely. Actually, it's been 5. I think we need to do that again, maybe in 2019, Ian. Let's bring that back because it's been several years. But one good thing about that challenge was it was a lot of protein, not too many carbs.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to look at it that way, there's always a silver lining. But we can mix that in next year. I think that was a lot of fun, and I think it might be time to bring that back again. See if anyone's been training for it and they can finish it this time.
Yeah, especially all these man versus food challenges on television. This will be really kind of like man versus the Tides food there. So,
absolutely.
What has caught your eye? You watch a lot of baseball. Has been the fundamentals this summer as far as AAA over the years? Because you've watched, the Mets, you watched the Orioles, and you watched all the teams that go with it. What has caught your eye both in the major leagues and minor leagues this year?
I think the main thing is that at the major league level is there's so much hit or miss kind of thing. There's so many all or nothing guys where they're trying to hit home runs or they strike out, and strikeouts don't seem to be a big negative anymore across baseball. People are okay with people striking out. I'm not sure I'm necessarily okay with that as a baseball fan, but that just seems to be a thing that's across baseball. And that's why when you get certain guys, like we have a young outfielder named Cedric Mullins, who was a really big prospect for the Orioles. And he's kind of the old-fashioned a smaller guy who puts the ball in play. He's fast. He runs down everything in the outfield, and it's really refreshing to see. He's I think he's the number 5 rated prospect in the Orioles system, and I think over the last 15 to 20 games, he's hit about 350 or so, and he's leading the league in runs, and he's just a pest. And I say that in the nicest way possible, where opposing pitchers don't like facing him because he'll foul off pitches and, beat out infield singles and drop down a bunt, do all the little things well. And there's not enough of that, in my opinion, in baseball anymore. So Cedric Mullins, for those Orioles fans out there, is certainly a name to watch going forward.
How do people connect with you on social media?
Yeah, fans can check us out. Our entire schedule is available on our website, norfolktides.com. They can also check us out on facebook.com/NorfolkTides. Our Twitter and our Instagram and our Snapchat handles are at Norfolk Tides. And then fans can go onto our YouTube page where we post video clips throughout the year. That's Norfolk Tides Clips. So there's all sorts of places to check us out, and we're always online. We're always updating stuff. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through our Twitter or Facebook, and we can respond to any questions you might have. And we got about 25, 30 home games left, so there's still plenty of chances to come out and watch the Tides at a beautiful Auburn Park. That's
about 5 college football seasons of home games. That's still a lot. We always talk about that.
Yeah, I think we have 4 homestands left, so they do go fast, but it's about, I think it's a 4-game series, and I think we end with 7. So there's 4 homestands left, so still plenty of chances to come out there, but they do move fast. Summer's already 60% over. It's hard to believe.
Yep. Ian, have a great rest of the weekend, and we will talk to you very soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Ian Locke right there, the Media Relations Director of the Norfolk Tides. Stay tuned.
Sports and Imports, located at 1322 Transylvania Avenue in Chesapeake. Sports and Imports specializes in all European models without the European price. ASE certified and Bosch certified. Don't waste time and money guessing what the problem is. Sports and Imports can pinpoint the problem and fix it the first time. Make an appointment today. Financing is available. Visit sportsandimports.net or call 545-9394. You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
All right, highlights. Our good friends at the Courtyard in Hampton. Go by and see Mark and the wonderful staff. Great summer vacation headquarters, the Courtyard in Hampton at 1917 Coliseum Drive. Great office there, great office study, as well as a pool, a bistro, convenient to several restaurants and locations. Good quality of life at the Courtyard Hampton. Give them a call at 838-3300. Great spacious rooms. An oasis in Hampton is the Courtyard Hampton. Highlights, of course. Sports Scene is online on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. For more, go to gjbtv.com. On the radio Saturday morning, 10 to 11 on the Lighthouse, 100.1 FM, 10:10 a.m. TuneIn.com, type in WPMH, and you can be a favorite. That's TuneIn.com, type in WPMH in the search bar. Hampton Roads Online Mall, HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Browse, shop, visit, bookmark it, gjbtv.com, and hrsmhof.com. Our question of the day, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News, one of our favorite segments, to Joe Daniel. Joe Daniel, do you think a priest should be just a spiritual leader or involved in every level of church clubs, etc., minutia, being a busybody?
I think it depends on the congregation and the dynamic between it. I mean, I know it varies from denomination to denomination. I have always grown up non-denominational, so I've never had a priest in the church. It's always just been the pastor and maybe a board of elders, but never a priest. And so I'm not exactly sure what a priest is supposed to do, but based on my understanding, yes, they are. The only job that they are obliged to do is be that spiritual leader. I think depending on that dynamic and how much they want to be involved in other clubs and activities, they're more than welcome to. I don't think that they should be told that, no, you must abstain from doing anything. But I also don't think that they should be pressured to be more involved beyond just the call of what the priesthood is involved with.
Because a lot of times churches have business hours, and a lot of times painters come by, contractors, for the festivals. They might have to have shipments come in. So a lot of times they're the eyes and the ears of the church, and also security sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to run a church, and depending on obviously how big it is, I mean, you have the priest, and then you have the pastor, and then you have other associates, if you will, that run the business of the church. You have someone who does accounting. I don't know if that's specifically supposed to be the pastor or an actual accountant, but it just depends on the dynamic of the church, and I think just leave it up to them, and whatever works, works.
Very good. Stay tuned.
If you are pregnant, then you know there's a lot to consider. Here are some tips. Eat nourishing food, stay active, get plenty of rest, and do all you can to minimize stress. Avoid smoking and alcohol during pregnancy. Become informed about your options for care before, during, and after the baby comes. Check with your health plan for maternity programs and mobile resources that may help you have a healthy pregnancy. Now is the time to start planning for breastfeeding. It offers healthy benefits to you and your baby. It's best for you both if you give birth after 39 weeks of pregnancy. Life with your new baby is a big adjustment, so it's okay to ask for and accept help with everyday tasks. Call your healthcare provider if you have problems breastfeeding, feel depressed, or face other challenges. Visit childbirthconnection.org to learn more. That's childbirthconnection.org. This public service message is from the National Partnership for Women and Families, United Healthcare, and this station.
Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
All right, welcome back to Sports Scene at Greg Bick on Twitter. I want to welcome our good friend George McClain, the owner of the Marksman and Newport News. George, how are you?
Doing well, Greg. How about you?
Very good. Before we start off with the interview, talk about when people first walk into the store for the first time, what should they be prepared for, the types of questions, and generally, what is a first-time visit like for new customers?
Well, it really depends on the needs of the customer and why they're coming in. If it's coming in to purchase a firearm or ammunition or accessories, anything like that, and you walk in, you'll see the retail sales counter would be to your left. If you're coming in to shoot on the range, that's going to be on the right. We separate those, so we don't have people in line with all the group of everyone coming in to shoot at the range when you're wanting to look at a particular firearm or something. So you just go in the line. You'll see the register on the right side for the range. You'll probably be greeted as soon as you walk in the door. Ask how you can be helped. So that's how we know whether you're looking at something on the retail side or whether you need a range, and then we take it from there. If it's range, you got the liability release forms that you need to sign if you're not a member. And so we get everything, point you in the right direction. We're going to ask you, if you've got firearms experience, if you're wanting to shoot, and that's a safety issue for us. Everyone on the range has a right to feel that everyone else on the range is qualified to be there. It's you wouldn't want a 16-year-old that doesn't have a driver's license being out in the middle of the Daytona 500 field with all the other drivers out there. They want to make sure that every driver is qualified. Mm-hmm. Same thing with being on the range. We want to make sure that you're at least at a minimum level that we would recognize to be safe. And if you can't satisfy us that you have that minimum level of expertise, then we're going to suggest that you get with an instructor, whether it be one of our instructors or somebody else that you know of that can come in with you, and then you teach you how to shoot. So it's safety first.
When you were a young kid, of course, you were in the service too. Is that something that your family got you involved in guns at a young age? And for somebody who's never been involved with it, is it better to learn as a young person, or can senior citizens and older people still get a grasp of it today?
Well, certainly, yes. It's open to anyone that has the desire, that wants to learn, or wants to experience that freedom, if you will. There's skill involved in taking that bullseye out of the target. I was born and raised in West Virginia in a time that's much different than where we are today, and and I was, hunting and shooting guns with my father before I was able to ride a bicycle. So to me, it's kind of, second nature. Even going into the military, I excelled at marksmanship there, basically because it's not that you can't learn anything more. You can always pick up something from someone, and they give you different pointers on the shooting fundamentals. But I had already the experience of shooting handguns and long guns prior to going into the military. But that was just one more step in that learning process of learning the fundamentals. My father was teaching me. The word fundamentals wasn't used. We didn't, he didn't break it down at that. So, this is how you position yourself. This is how you hold the firearm. This is, finger on the trigger. You squeeze it. So there's certain terms that are the same, but we didn't get into the scientific area and calling it fundamentals as you do once you get into the professional realm of things, be it the military or being with a private professionally trained instructor, and learning the fundamentals as you should.
Talking to George McClain, the owner of the Marksman and Newport News, and every season has its comings and goings for gun and gun safety. But let's talk about what's been in the news most recently in Maryland, a shooting. And it's kind of sad. Another, disgruntled employee comes in and wipes the office out. And it was kind of noticed that he had some issues with the newspaper. But at the same time, that's why I think a lot of people are so active and proactive that somebody at a workforce should have a gun and the proper permits to go with it because of sad incidents like this.
Well, I don't know how many times it's going to take for something like this to happen for people to wake up.
Yeah.
And the people that need to wake up are the ones that put restrictions on others that forbid them to take action that would protect their own life or lives of others. Anytime that you have these gun-free zones, or you've got states that forbid people from carrying a firearm for self-defense unless you can prove to them a need at the time you make application, which Maryland is one of those states. We call that it's a may issue state versus a shall issue state. So you can apply for a permit to carry a concealed firearm, and they may issue it or they may not issue it, depending on what your reasons or justification is to make application. And then you've got business owners. They take the same attitude. It's like, no, we don't want any guns around here. Keep that stuff off the property. If you're going to work here, no guns. If you bring a gun, you're going to get fired. And then you've got somebody comes in that does something like this, and everybody is totally defenseless.
Talking to George McClain. And George, you have to. It's just a big place of employment, no matter whether it's local, regional, or national, with so many employees that lose their jobs, that get laid off. It's going on, like you said, every day. It's like a lottery. It's sooner or later it's going to hit, and when it hits, it's devastating for the entire community, the entire country, and everything else. There's a bank in Hampton, I'm not going to mention its name, that closes at 2:00 now. A bank that closed at 2. The drive-thru is still open till 5 because of armed robberies.
Well, back in the old days, that's what time banks closed.
I know. Yeah. But it's getting to a point, whether it's any public place, whether it's a bank or a department store, anything, there's somebody that has to be a point person and be proactive for disgruntled customers and employees both.
Well, that's right. It excuse me, gets to the point where it drives up the business operational cost, to keep armed guards. How many do you need? Is one enough? Do you need 2, 3, 4, more than that, in order to keep your businesses safe? But I think eventually that's what it's going to, have to come down to. Everyone wants to stay open as late as they can to give everyone that opportunity to come in and spend money. But that also gives the bad guy the opportunity to come in and create havoc and rob the place. So at some point, you need to take a look at what's in everyone's best interest, and again, safety has to be at the top of that list.
Yep. Talk about the Marksman as far as the how to get there. Pretty much very convenient in Newport News, but it's also convenient for the people that live in Yorktown, Poquoson, Gloucester, and Hampton. Pretty much convenient for anywhere in Hampton Roads.
Yeah, it really is easy to get to coming up, Warwick Boulevard or Jefferson, either one. It's on Industrial Park Drive between, that there's a section of industrial that goes between Jefferson and Warwick, and we're right beside the railroad track. So very, very easy to get to. Kind of a little bit of an out of the way, place at that point. You're a little bit further, west up the peninsula, so it's out of the heavy, typically out of the heavy, traffic areas. But it's, I think, for what we do, and it's pretty convenient for everyone in James City County, Williamsburg area, York County, and of course everyone in Hampton News. It's kind of right in the middle of that geographic area.
People Google the Marksman, Newport News, and of course anybody that wants to hear George's interviews, just type in George McClain Sports Scene, and all of his interviews are archived on YouTube. Every Saturday morning on the radio, this show comes on from 10 to 11 on 100.1 FM, 1010 AM, tunein.com. Type in WPMH, and George, we have a lot of tourists on the road on Saturday mornings, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are involved in road rage. It happens where people are driving too close to each other. You have to keep your cool whether you're driving or on land, and unfortunately guns do play a part like anything else.
Well, they do. Unfortunately, they're at that point they're usually used in the offensive versus defensive situations. You got some people that get out there and they're just idiots, shouldn't be on the road. They are, and they think that they can do anything that they want to. And the law's not going to catch up with them, or anyone else is going to catch up with them. And you're right. At that point, you just keep your cool. Don't play into their games. You're going to have people that gets out. They want to get right on your rear bumper and tailgate you, and then they want to come around to the front and slam on the brakes. And I think anymore, a lot of them's got these dash cams, and they're just trying to create something so they can get something on video and upload it, one of the YouTube videos or whatever else they're putting them on, and it just puts everybody at risk. And the biggest thing is just not play their game. Someone wants to do that, just get off.
George, thank you so much for that great interview. The Marksman, right there in Newport News, folks. Google it.
What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
I want to thank Paul and the good people at Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News. Go by and get some great lunch and dinner. Watch Major League Baseball on TV this summer. Watch golf and tennis as well. Traditional wings, boneless wings, burgers, wraps, great rollout menu, kids menu, desserts, 7 days a week, 7 nights a week. Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News next to Patrick Henry Mall. Download their app. 12150 Jefferson Avenue in Newport News. Like them on Facebook. Follow them on social media as well. Buffalo Wild Wings, great place for lunch, dinner, all the games on TV, wings, beer, sports in Newport News. Now, back to what teased me off. Joe Daniel, always one of our favorite segments. It's one thing to drink in front of somebody like a soda or a bottled water, for example, but it's a totally different meaning when one person is eating in front of the other and the other person's not eating.
Yeah, I've never noticed that. And that's a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
You never want to eat alone. You go out for lunch, and then how awkward is it when you order something? Oh, I'll take this hamburger or something like that. And they say, just a water for me. I'm okay. Or just a Diet Coke. And you're like, all right, well, thanks. I'm just going to look like a glutton in front of you.
Right. Or if you're just munching out, let's say on a bag of chips, another person is just sitting there helplessly.
They're just sitting here watching you. And you ask, hey, you want some chips? And they're like, no, I'm fine. But it's still kind of an awkward thing. But you're right. I mean, taking a drink somewhere, water, Gatorade, soda or something like that, no big deal. As soon as you bring out food, now all of a sudden, that's another level.
Yeah, one person went off, I think it was on social media, about a person eating on a bus, minding his own business. Sure, it was kind of rude to eat on a bus because it was in front of others, and the bus says no eating or drinking, but it wasn't like he was creating a crime scene either.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff with that. Obviously, you don't want people to break the rules, but also the bus driver should have enforced the rules, and also people who chew loudly. You know, it would have been just even compounded exponentially if not only was he breaking the rules and just bringing food onto the bus and eating it, but also chewing loudly and just smacking his lips, licking his fingers of the salt and pepper vinegar or whatever.
Yeah, just pay attention to that, folks. Nobody says nothing about somebody drinking a bottle of water, but as soon as you open up that hamburger or a bag of chips, they sure do. We've all dealt with these type of people, fly-by-night people. You see them once and then you never see them again.
Yeah.
In all walks of life.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, there's always room for that. I mean, they're strangers, you know, cashiers and all that. But sometimes you think that you're going to a party or a conference, and then they just, what the kids say, they ghost you. You text them, you call them, but they never respond to you. And definitely don't do that. Be professional, be cordial, be nice. You know, at least give them the time of day if you met them.
Oh, I use that term all the time, and I'm not that old either, but people do ghost people.
Yeah,
that's true. Even our friends do. You and I don't, but there are people that do ghost each other. All right, motorcycles are one thing, but look, motorcycle people, you have to respect the roads because a tractor trailer will crush you, so will a car. I mean, when you start swerving in between cars on the interstate, it's very, very tough.
Yeah, it's a very, very dangerous thing to be in. I love motorcycle riders, and I have the utmost respect for them on the road. I always try to be mindful, you know, keep my ears open and listen for the engine, keep my eyes open, double check to make sure there are no motorists. But something coming from California, over in California, you can split the lane. So there's a lot of heavy traffic in LA and San Diego, these big cities. And what people do on motorcycles, they can actually split and go in between the cars and travel faster. People coming in from out of town, they don't know that that's legal. And so often I've seen where cars will literally cut in front of a motorcycle who's splitting the lane, doing something completely legal. But just because they thought, you can't do that, I'm going to take the law into my own hands and stop you from doing that, that's horrible, because
could kill somebody.
Exactly. I mean, keep an eye out for motorcycles, and like you said, there needs to be just that mutual respect between each other.
You see that on the emergency lanes too, where people are trying to go in the emergency lane to get off the exit, and that one car will cut them off. That could cause a chain reaction.
Yeah, or driving on the shoulder or something like that. Yeah,
exactly right. Driving in the sun in the morning is never easy with that big glare on you.
Yeah, right in your eyes, and you try to put the visor down, but it's at that perfect level where it's just below the visor.
This is really tough. And this is true, it happens to everybody, paper cuts. And even opening up a plastic bottle of mouthwash, I cut my thumb on the plastic coating because it was, and now I was happy it was tightly wrapped, but it was almost too tightly wrapped.
Yeah, I haven't received a paper cut. Thank you, God, for not allowing me to get a paper cut, because they are, like you said, the worst. The worst paper cut I got was I had a piece of paper in a book. The book fell off the table, and I went to go grab the book, but there was that piece, a little like about an inch of paper sticking out of the book, and when it slid, it sliced in between my thumb and finger down. That's probably the worst paper cut I had.
You and I are in the broadcasting business. We've done a lot of commercials, but how about this? People doing commercials who alter their voice to kids, like they're talking to kids. Just be yourself, man or woman. Do the commercial. A kid is not going to get all soft and bubbly, but you're talking like you're babysitting he or she.
It depends. Yeah, it all depends. I mean, whatever the client wants, essentially, you know, you kind of have to do that. If they want somebody who is in this higher kind of squeaky register, you know, you got to give them what they want. If there's somebody who they want is a baritone and they want that deep, rugged, you know, Dodge commercial voice, I mean, you got to give it to them, you know,
right.
Even though you are changing your voice, at that point, you do have to be yourself in your delivery, but give the client what they want as far as your tone.
But it's not a bedtime story either.
Correct.
All right,
no lullabies.
We all see this. We've talked about this. Insects, they're everywhere.
Yeah, I hate bugs, beetles, all of them. I hate them.
All right, mix and match for these restaurants. 2 for $4 is okay. That's reasonable. 2 for $6, that's not reasonable, folks. I'm sorry. Liberals calling for violence. Shame on you. I mean, respect everybody no matter who they vote for. People with agendas in church leadership, we know who you are. Idle sounds of trucks, Joe Daniel, especially in the morning when you hear an engine running. Let's say it's 7 o'clock in the morning and it like cranks up the engine.
Yeah, I lived in an apartment complex, and there was always that one guy who needed to go to work early. Totally respect that. He probably had a great job, but yes, starting the engine at probably 6:45, sometimes 7 o'clock in the morning, and you got to let it throttle. You got to get it warmed up, but that was pretty bad.
Yeah, let the whole neighborhood hear it. Cutting yourself opening up a bottle, that's never fun. That is what teased me off. Want to thank our guests today, of course, as always, Joe McIlvaine, Ian Locke, and George McClain. Great guests. For more, log on to gjbtv.com. Click the YouTube link, all powered by Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com. Twitter, @GregBick, and of course you can tweet me 24/7. For Joe Daniel, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. We'll talk to you soon.